So we looked at two types of ratios, liquidity and asset management ratios. Asset management ratio are very important because it tells us how the firm is able to manage its current assets, in particular the receivables, the inventories, and then how it's able to also manage its obligations, particularly trade payables. So we looked at ITO, how many times a firm is able to buy raw materials, convert it into finished products, and to sell. And then we have ARTO, how many times a company in a year or in an operating period is able to collect on its receivables, and how many times a year does it pay on its trade payables. Now this is related to the DIO, DSO, DPO. ITO, ARTO, and APTO looks at it from a perspective of the number of times, while DIO, DSO, DPO looks at it in terms of the number of days. We said that operating cycle is the number of days it takes the company to buy raw materials, convert to finished product, sell, and then collect. So that's your operating cycle. That's your DIO plus DSO. And then we also learned about the cash conversion cycle, which is very important because it measures the number of days a company will finance its current obligations or trade payables. So we say that a high cash conversion cycle indicates that a company has to finance its obligations for a longer period of time, which indicates a higher interest rates on the part of the company. So a low cash conversion cycle, in a sense, is good because it tells us that there's a matching of the collection and the payment of trade payables. Some companies, guys, has a negative cash conversion cycle. There's a good there's a good side and a bad side to that. Good side because a negative cash conversion cycle indicates that a company has, for example, if it's negative 90, it means that it has collected already its receivables, and it will take still 90 more days for it to pay its payables. That's good because the company will be able to use its cash collection for other purposes before paying its suppliers. On the other hand, it's also a bad thing because from the perspective of your suppliers, okay, it might not be a win-win situation. Remember that companies do not work in a vacuum. Okay, a good partnership with the company means that you also support your suppliers so that they have available cash already, readily available at a shorter period of time, so that they can also enhance their operations. So it's a two-edged sword, guys, itong cash conversion cycle na to. Katulad itong competitor na to, negative 15. Okay, so we can say that cash, they're able to collect cash already 15 days prior to the average days it takes them to pay their payables. So you have to look at it from a more broader perspective. Okay, we can say that let's say a cash conversion cycle that's negative 180 days. Wow, that's almost 6 months available na yung collect na yung cash, then bago tayo magbayad dun sa suppliers natin. Okay, there's a big question there because how do we treat our suppliers? Baka naman masyado natin tinitikis yung suppliers natin na kunyari nagdi-demand tayo ng kunyari 180 days na na credit terms. Okay, gusto ng supplier na maging partner yung company natin. So kailangan from a managerial perspective, kailangan din titingnan natin yung, remember, hindi lang tayo, the company is not, as I mentioned a while ago, it's not operating in a vacuum. So anything that the company does could also affect your suppliers, and we don't want our good suppliers also to fall by the wayside. Kasi kung sila yung source ng raw materials natin, good raw materials, there has to be a partnership, no? A symbiotic relationship, a win-win situation. Ito yung concept sa Japan, guys, nung kunyari Toyota working with their suppliers, yung concept ng TQM, Total Quality Management, they encourage their suppliers to locate near the Toyota plant para yung movement, yung velocity ng ng galaw ng raw materials mas mabilis, tapos suportahan sila, no? Kasi kumbaga we're all in this together. Okay, hindi lang dapat yung company ang mag-succeed, pati yung suppliers nila. Remember, these suppliers are also stakeholders. Okay, so enough said with that. Okay, may nag-chat, may nag-question ba? Okay, thank you. Alright, so debt ratio naman guys, itong DR. Okay, it tells us of the leverage of the company. Okay, debt ratio. So tatlo yung ratios na tinitingnan dito. Capability of the firm to pay its interest obligations as they fall due. So in debt ratio muna tingnan natin, the formula is just the total liabilities over the total assets. Ibig sabihin guys na per peso of asset which the company possesses, ilan dun yung financed by liability or utang. Noong 2019, ito, yung company natin, 54 centavos to a peso of assets. Of course, yung 1 minus debt ratio will be your equity ratio. So 54 centavos financed by debt, 46 centavos financed by equity. Nag-increase yung debt ratio noong 2020, no? Because of the huge borrowing. So tumaas yung debt ratio natin, naging 8.80. So again, is this good or bad, guys? Good in the sense that we're able to borrow and use it for operations, use it for expansion of business. Okay, that's a good thing if the company is able to borrow also. Remember guys, may good effect ang debt, no? Diba? Kasi nagkakaroon tayo ng tax savings kung gumagamit tayo ng debt. And also later on, pagdating natin dun sa capital structure, makikita natin na may impact ang debt sa operating performance. And we call that the operating leverage. No? Operating leverage and financial leverage, yung dalawang yan. However, taken into an extreme, delikado din yan kasi baka hindi na mabayaran ng company yung ma-service nila yung interest payments nila. So, kailangan astute, kailangan very keen yung analysis ng company nito, particularly the CFO, as far as maintaining a high debt ratio is concerned. Also, it might be very difficult now for the company to borrow again kasi mataas na yung debt ratio nila. No? Kasi any financing company would conduct due diligence. Titingnan niya, ilan na ba yung debt ratio nito? Kung umaabot na yan ng matataas na, di ba? So, delikado na sila. Baka hindi mabayaran ng company na yan, yung pag-umutang pa siya. So, these are very important ratios. Bumaba naman siya nung 2021, ano ba nangyari? Bumaba ba yung total liability? Tingnan lang natin, ha? So, again, guys, importante na tinitingnan natin yung, okay, yun. From 805, naging 2.3, tapos naging 1.5. So, most probably, nakapagbayad siya ng, okay, ito pala, tumaas yung long-term debt, tapos nakapagbayad siya ng debt din noong 2021, bumaba ng 500,000. Okay, so yung long-term debt niya bumaba. So this was the reason why your total liabilities went down and then your debt ratio went down. Okay? Alright, so how about TIE, guys? Itong TIE, ano naman to? Yung TIE, guys, is times interest earned. It tells us the capability of the firm to pay its interest expense. So, ang formula niyan, your EBIT over interest expense. No? So, recall guys that EBIT is just earnings before interest and taxes. So, ibig sabihin, bago pa natin i-deduct yung interest. So, magkano yung EBIT, no? Para mabayaran yung interest expense. Kasi, take note, ang susunod sa EBIT is interest. Diba? Sa income tax statement natin. Income statement natin, not income tax. Okay, so anong ibig sabihin nitong TIE? For every 1 peso, kunyari ito, 3.35 in 2019. For every 1 peso of interest expense, merong 3.35 pesos yung company para bayaran yung interest expense nila. Okay, so ibig sabihin, capable siya to pay. Ito, guys, ito yung problema natin noong 2020 kasi 0.10 na lang. So sa bawat piso na utang, 10 centavos lang yung EBIT ng company para bayaran yung interest expense. So hindi nagma-match, no? Mataas yung sa bawat piso ng interest expense, 10 pesos na lang yung EBIT. So what happened here? Kung titingnan natin income statement, bakit naging 10 pesos at 10 centavos? Okay, we can get that from the income statement. Ito. So sales 5.3 million, total operating cost 5.8 million. Okay. 5.3, 5.8, other expenses. Sorry, 5.8, no? So 5.8 minus 5.3, so that's 17,440. Okay? So, kasi malaki yung, nag-increase nga yung sales, pero grabe naman yung increase ng total operating cost. Cost of goods sold, grabe yung taas. No? Again, tingnan natin dito guys. No? Dito. Ang increase ng cost of goods sold is 73% year on year. No? Tumaas, ang laki ng tinaas ng ano. Ang tinaas ng sales, 70% lang. So, mas malaki yung increase ng cost of goods sold relative to sales. In 2019, the cost of goods ratio to sales was 83.4. Tumaas siya ng 85.4. Again, kung part tayo ng company, titingnan natin yan, no? Ano ba yung components ng cost of goods sold? Okay? Bakit tumaas ng ganito? 2 percentage points. Okay, so it calls for an investigation. Kasi nga, yung tayo natin, naging 17,440 na lang out of 176,000. So, hindi na mako-cover yung interest expense na to. Kaya nga nag-negative na yung EBT natin. As compared to 2019, guys, we had 209 pesos for every 62 pesos of interest expense. Tapos nakabawi na lang dito sa nakabawi dito sa 2021. Okay, so that's your TIE. The times interest earned, or the interest coverage, tells us how much or how many pesos can the company does the company have for every 1 peso of interest expense. Okay, ang pinsan nito guys ng times interest earned, yung EBITDA. EBITDA coverage, ang ginagamit dito hindi yung EBIT but your EBITDA, no? So yun lang yung difference sila, and then you add back lease dun sa numerator. Okay, I will not anymore explain guys kung bakit dinadagdag yung lease. It has something to do with more of either operating lease or capital lease, which is not our concern. Basta tandaan nyo lang guys na ang EBITDA coverage is EBITDA plus the lease, then divided by lahat ng mga expenses, no? That's related to debt, no? Interest expense, principal, and lease. So ito yung EBITDA. So you can see here, guys, yung EBITDA coverage ng company. So it has 2 pesos and 61 centavos in order to pay its interest, principal, and lease. Tapos nag-suffer talaga siya nung 2020, and then naka-recover ulit ng 2021. Okay, the higher the TIE and EBITDA coverage means that the higher is the capability of the company to pay its interest expense for TIE and interest, principal, and lease for EBITDA coverage. Okay? Alright, pause muna ako guys. I know that I'm a bit accelerating the pace. Do you have any questions regarding this debt ratios, guys? Tatlo lang naman yung nilagay natin debt ratio dito. There are others, but I don't expect you to use them dun sa paper natin, sa project. Okay, so no questions. Okay, let me continue, guys. Profitability ratios, importante din to kasi it tells us how the company is performing. Okay, of course, in the light of benchmarking against time and benchmarking against the competitors or benchmark. So una, operating margin, guys, it's just simply ang operating margin, simple, EBIT divided by the sales. Okay. Ilang EBIT, guys, ang na-generate natin, magkano EBIT ang na-generate for every 1 peso of sales. So the higher the OM, operating margin, of course, the better is the performance of the company. Kasi ibig sabihin, kunyari ito, sa 2019, sa bawat piso ng sales, just recall, guys, that if you're interpreting this, just by definition, it's always best to put a value of 1 dun sa denominator. That's why you notice that when I interpret this, sa bawat piso na sales, we have EBIT of 6 centavos. Okay? The higher, the better, of course. The higher is the operating profit, which is your EBIT, the better. So here we can see that if we add a decimal place here, okay, ito 0.3 centavos lang sa 2020. No? Ito 6 centavos, ito 7 centavos. So 2020 was really a bad year for this company in terms of operating performance. Okay? That's why yung profit margin natin, which is really the bottom line already, no? Ito na yung net income after tax divided by sales. Okay? So, yung operating margin natin is your EBIT divided by sales. Yung profit margin natin is net income after tax before sales. So which means ito na yung bottom line. Ibig sabihin, when all is said and done, pagkatapos na matanggal lahat ng mga expenses, meron tayong 3 centavos for every 1 peso of sales. Itong negative na to, guys, ibig sabihin, nalulugi tayo ng 2 cents per peso of sales. So sa bawat benta natin na piso, lugi tayo ng 2 centavos. Dito naman, we earn 4 centavos for each peso of sales. And kita natin, 2020 really was a bad year for the company, but it recovered in 2021. However, it pales in comparison with the competitor. Kasi si competitor kumikita ng 6 centavos for every peso of sales. Okay? Next, guys, is the basic earning power. Ano naman itong basic earning power? Si basic earning power, guys, again, si EBIT ang ginagamit natin, divided by total sales, total assets. So ito, tinitingnan natin, magkano ba yung generate natin na EBIT sa bawat piso ng sales. Okay, of course, the higher, the better. No? The higher, the better. So 0.14, 0.01, 0.14. Let me just increase the decimal place. Okay. So halos pareho lang yung 2019 and 2020, and then really halos hindi nga naka isang centavos no? So dito sa bawat piso ng asset dito, hindi pa nga tayo nakaka 1 centavos noong 2020. Ito nakaka 14 cents tayo for 2019 and 2020. Is that good? Okay, over time, guys, nag-deteriorate siya ng 2020, pero nakahabol naman siya ng 2021, as seen from this plot, no? Okay, but relative to the benchmark, guys, we're behind. Kasi sila 18 centavos to the for each asset, no? Yung basic earning power nila. So it indicates a good use of the asset. Okay? Just like meron tayong OM at saka PM, meron din tayong basic earning power at saka return on assets, no? Here, yung basic earning power natin, guys, ang denominator natin total assets. Dito din ang denominator natin sa ROA, total assets. Okay, guys, ang technique dyan, pag nakikita kayo ng ROA, ang R dyan laging net income after tax. Okay, that's what R there means. On assets, yun ang nasa denominator natin. So ROE is net income after tax over total equity. So that's how to easily remember kung ano ba yung mga R na yan. ROA, ROE, ROI, etc. etc. Pero dati, guys, di ba nag-ROIC tayo, Return on Invested Capital. Okay. Yung R natin doon is NOPAT, no? Yung IC natin doon is the invested capital. No? We discussed that when we looked at when we looked at WACC and when we looked at EVA and MVA last time. Okay, so yung mga profitability margins ito, guys, profitability ratios, ang general rule niyan, the higher the better kasi we're talking of profitability. But then again, guys, tinitingnan natin to over time and benchmark against the company. So, yung profitability na na-generate ng company per peso of total assets, it pales in comparison with their competitor, no? Kasi si competitor nila 9%. Samantalang tayo, noong 2019 nga, 6% lang tayo, 6 centavos for every peso of sales. Tapos ito, 3.3 loss. Sa bawat piso na ininvest ng company, nalulugi tayo ng 3.3 centavos. Tapos ito naman, 2021, naka-recover tayo, naging 7 centavos to the peso of assets. But then again, guys, as I said, we pale in comparison with the competitor. Now, in the real world, siyempre, hindi lang tayo magtitigil sa ganyan, no? Titingnan natin yung quality ng mga ng mga composition na to. Saan tayo mababa, no? Okay, is it because of the total assets? Baka masyado bang malaking total assets natin compared to the competitor? Okay, is there something wrong with having a big total asset base? No. So most probably, assuming, guys, assuming na okay naman yung investment nila sa total assets, no? it indicates that yung operating performance nila mababa. Okay? They're not able to capitalize on, let's say, on the huge asset base that they have. Hindi nila nagagamit ng husto yung total assets nila. Kasi pwedeng mas 9% to guys kasi mas mababa yung total assets nito ng company na to. Kunyari, ito 2 million ang total assets niya. Tayo ang total assets natin 2.5 million. So, ang ibig sabihin nun guys, kahit na 9%, kahit na mas mababa yung total assets ng company na to, they're able to generate relatively more sales, no? Better sales. Kasi mas ano yung net income after tax nila. Okay? Or mas maganda yung net income after tax nila relative to their total assets compared to us. So, ganun angle ang titinan guys, no? That's what financial analysts do pag tinitingnan nila itong mga ratios na to. And then also we have total equity. Ito naman tinitingnan natin sa bawat piso ng ininvest ng mga shareholders, magkano yung return ng ng management. So dito 13.3%, medyo bumaba siya ng 12.8% noong 2021. Noong 2020 nga naglo-lose tayo, no? While the competitor is at 18%. So mas happy yung mga shareholders dito, guys, compared dun sa company natin kasi mas mataas yung profit margin nila to every peso of equity. Okay? All right, then we have last three dito. EPS, this is a very popular measurement, earnings per share. So ano tong earnings per share nito? Ang ginagawa dito guys, kinukuha ulit natin yung net income after tax and then divide natin ng average number of shares. Okay, bakit average number of shares? Kasi possible guys na nag-i-issue ng bagong stock yung company. So pwede magkaiba yung beginning at saka yung ending. So dapat ang titingnan natin, if there's a change in the beginning number of shares and the ending number of shares, dapat i-average out natin yan. So take a look at this example. Okay. So for this one, for 2020, net income after tax natin is E13. So this is our net income after tax. This is our NIAT divided by the number of shares. Okay. So hindi sa atin binigay yung number of shares dito. Okay, but still, we can get the average of this. Anyway, 100 din naman yung average nito eh. Pero what's good about that formula is that we can drag this to this side. Kasi, nagbago yung number of shares. Ibig sabihin, nag-issue ng bagong stock yung company. From 100,000 shares, naging 250,000 shares. Okay, so that's what this formula is all about. Okay, we're just dividing your net income after tax with the number of shares. Okay, in other words, guys, average to. No? Average. So since yung net income after tax natin in 2020 is negative, therefore, negative to. So ibig sabihin, 1 per share, per average share, a stockholder is losing 95 centavos, no, per share. Pagdating ng 2021, naka-recover yung company, so per share of each stockholder, kumita ng 1.45. Okay, so that's what this means, no? 1.45, ibig sabihin for every one share ng isang shareholder, kumita yung company ng 1.45 centavos. Pero guys, again, it pales in comparison with our close competitor. Okay, bakit nga pala wala dito, guys? Bakit walang figure dito? Answer please, or paki-chat. Why don't we have a figure here? Answer, guys. Chat or paki-unmute. Bakit nga pala walang answer dito? Why don't we have EPS for 2019? Anyone? Any guess, guys? Bakit walang figure dito? Tingnan niyo yung formula, no? Yes. Okay, yes. Answer. Average number of shares. Bakit hindi natin nilagyan ng formula to, guys? Bakit? Ito, hindi natin nilagyan. Ba't hindi natin inuna tong formula na to? Kasi, guys, ano ba yung formula? Average number of shares. So, ibig sabihin, for 2019, it's the average of beginning ng 2019, which is end of 2018, and end ng 2019. Yes, correct. Tama. No? Wala tayong number of shares na given dito. Okay? Kaya hindi natin makocompute to. Pero kung meron dito, okay, we could have backtracked and computed for the EPS here. Okay? So, ganun din dito, guys. Going here now to PE ratio. Okay, tawag dito per PER, price earnings ratio. It tells us, okay, kung magkano yung price ng stock ngayon, okay, price per share divided by the earnings per share. Okay. So, may information tayo about the value of the stock now. So, binigay sa atin yung value of the stock now. It's 6 pesos. No? 6 pesos noong 2020. Tapos noong 2021, tumaas siya. Nag-doble. No? 12.17. Okay, 6 pesos. Therefore, magkano yung per? Magkano yung price earnings ratio? Ito. Negative 6.31. Bakit? Kasi guys, yung ano natin, yung ano natin guys, so take a look at the formula. Magkano yung price nito? 6 pesos, di ba? Divided by EPS, which is negative. So kaya naging negative yung ano natin, naging negative yung per. So walang masyadong mabibigyan na meaning dito guys, ano? Kasi wala naman negative na na presyo ng stock eh. Okay, so we withhold any meaning here. So it does not mean anything kasi negative siya. Ito meron, guys. Ano ibig sabihin nito? Price per share, okay, which is now 12.17 divided by your EPS, which is 1.45. So ibig sabihin yan, parang ito yung excess na market value over the earnings per share. Okay, so bawat piso na earnings per share, okay, ang market price niya ngayon is 8.4. Okay, ano ibig sabihin nun? If I'm going to have this, if I'm going to have this stock, I'm earning 1.45 per share and the market value is 12.17, di ba? Ito yung 12.17. So kung bibiling ko to sa merkado, sa market, it's 12.17. So this means that, okay, balik tayo dito. Okay. Ano ibig sabihin nito? So kung bibili ka ng ng stock nito, mag-earn ka ng 1 peso na earnings per share, pero ang ibabayad mo sa kanya to buy it is at 8.4. Okay, nakuha nyo guys? Okay. Ibig sabihin ng 8.4, that's 8.4 over 1. So if I'm going to get 1 peso na earning per share, I will have to buy this at 8.4. Okay? If we take a look at this, guys, yung competitor 9.5, ibig sabihin nun, mas mahal yung sa competitor natin. Okay? Ano ibig sabihin, guys, ng per, price earnings ratio? Pag mataas yan masyado, ibig sabihin, mahal yung stock na yan. Okay? Kasi kaya tinitingnan din ng financial analyst yan, yung per, yung price earnings ratio. Kasi ibig sabihin ulit, no? Kunyari, yung per ng isang company is 50. Ang ibig sabihin nun, guys, you're willing to buy the asset at 50 pesos, okay, in order to get an earnings per share of 1 peso. If you own that stock, you're going to earn 1 peso, pero ang bibili mo na market value niyan is 50 pesos. Okay, so that's what this means, yung per, no? It has something to do with the asset being very expensive or cheap, no? Pag mataas na yung per, guys, ibig sabihin nun, ang earnings per share mo, kikita ka dun sa company ng piso, pero yung market value niya is yung per. Okay, so the higher the per, the more expensive it is. So may mga stock guys na matataas yung per. Okay, may mga stocks naman na mabababa. So ibig sabihin nun, mas attractive guys sa mga investors yung mababa yung per, yung price earnings ratio. Kasi this is indicative of a price of a stock that's expensive. The higher the per, the more expensive is the stock. Okay, then pareho din to guys yung share price naman over operating cash flow per share. So ganun din to, no? So ito naman ang difference niya yung denominator lang. Yung isa EPS yung ginamit, yung isa operating cash flow. So pag in-interpret natin to, itong price to cash flow ratio, we're saying magkano yung price ng stock nito for every one operating cash flow that you have per share. So medyo related yung interpretation ng PE at saka price to cash flow. The only difference is that iba yung basis natin. Yung sa una, earnings per share, yung pangalawa, operating cash flow per share. So ang formula lang ito guys, okay? What's F39? That's the price, di ba? That's the price. Ito, 12.17. And then, magkano din yung cash flow na na-generate? Okay, yung cash flow natin, makukuha natin dito sa cash flow statement. Remember guys, ano yung operating cash flow? Where is that here? Ito. Ang operating cash flow natin is net income after tax plus depreciation. Kaya sinam up lang natin to, no? Sinam natin yung operating cash flow for 2021 to divided by plus depreciation. Okay, and then okay. Ano yung dinivide natin? E40 and F40 divided by in-average din natin guys yung number of shares kasi per share yan eh. Operating cash flow per share. So since hindi constant yung hindi constant yung number of stocks natin, at the beginning of 2021 100,000 siya, at the end of 2021 250,000 siya. So ang question, ano gagamitin natin doon? Okay, kasi itong 100,000 na to, although end siya ng 2020, beginning din naman siya ng 2021. Okay, tapos ito naman end ng 2021. So what we do is to get the average. Kaya tingnan niyo to guys. Average of E40. So yan. So 175000. Yan. Okay, clear yung guys? Clear tong formula na to? By the way, nakita niyo yung ginawa ko, class? Hinighlight ko to. Gusto kong malaman tong average na to, no? I want to know how much is the average of the beginning and the ending price. Okay, so pwede ko mapakita kung magkano yon. Yan. Okay, then binalik ko na ulit. So anywhere in your function in Excel, pwede nyo kunin yung kunyari ito. Ano ba yung sum ng P16 and P17? Highlight ko lang yan. No? So that's the sum, 373584. Okay, so I guess you know how to do that, no? Okay, any questions, guys? Any questions? Okay, good. All right, no questions. So let's, okay, thank you. Then, yung last two measures natin, these are market value ratios, no? Yung isa, book value per share, that's BVPS. Yung isa naman, market to book value ratio. Okay, ito, madali lang to guys, yung book value per share kasi kukunin lang natin yung balance sheet account na total equity divided by ilan ba yung yung number of shares. Then i-average natin guys kung nagbabago yung number of shares, no? Okay, but here, if you take a look at this formula, so this is your total equity. Yung E35 na yan, that's your total equity. That's 557,632. Nasa taas yun, no? That's your total equity. And then i-divide natin ng number of shares. So, bakit natin dinidivide? Kasi possible, guys, na nagbabago yung number of shares natin. Okay? Itong D40 natin, yung beginning of the 2020, wala naman siyang value na nakalagay, but that's okay. This will also give us, ano pa rin to? That's still 100,000. Okay? So, ano ibig sabihin nito, guys? Ano ibig sabihin nito? Sa bawat isang share, guys, what does it mean? Book value. Okay? The value of the equity per share, no, is 5.6. So, kunyari, meron akong isang share sa company, no? So, technically, yung cost ng equity na yon, as far as the company is concerned, yung one share ko dun sa company is 5.6. And then, it increased to 11.3 noong 2021. So, there's a marked improvement here, no? Gumanda. Pwede ko bang i-ano to? Okay. So, makikita natin dito, nag-increase siya. However, guys, okay, it pales in comparison with the competitor. Okay, so mataas yung book value per share of the equity dun sa competitor. And then market value, guys. Okay, market value per share divided by book value per share. Meron na tayong book value per share, ito na. Yung market value per share na lang. So how do we compute that? Market value per share E39. Okay, given naman yan. Given pala yan, ano? Ito yung market value natin. Given na siya. How much is the stock trading at the stock market? Okay. Then divided by, so kino-compare natin yung market value at saka yung book value. Okay. So pag mataas, guys, ibig sabihin mas mataas yung value sa market ng isang share ng stock kaysa dun sa balance sheet books natin, no? Okay. So ibig sabihin, katulad nito 2.9, ibig sabihin yung valuation ng stock na to ng competitor natin mas mataas kaysa sa atin. Kung i-compare natin yung per 1 peso ng equity sa balance sheet. Okay. So market value nito, guys, mas mataas. Ibig sabihin it can command for a higher price itong stock na to. Itong company na to compared to our company. Okay. So that finishes the different ratios. Now, sa paper nyo, sa project nyo, guys, you can make use of this. Or if you see any other ratio na sa tingin nyo is useful, then nobody's preventing you from using other ratios. Kasi hindi ito lahat ng ratios. Marami pang ibang ratios. These are just the most basic ones. Okay? And there are other specialized ratios na hindi naman natin kailangan for our purposes in our discussion here. Okay, then the last two topics, tapos na, I have only 10 minutes. 9, ano ba? 9, hindi, anong oras ba tayo? Hindi pa. Okay, mahaba pa yung oras. 25 plus 15, okay. 40 minutes pa. Okay, kaya natin to. Okay, then, let's discuss DuPont, no? Okay, DuPont, nung early 1900s, wala pa yung concept ng EVA at saka MVA. Ang pinaka-importanting ratios as far as companies is concerned is ROE, ROA. In particular, ROE kasi ang focus nun yung sa equity side, yung investment, yung return dun sa mga shareholders. So they developed this, yung ratio na ROE, diba ano yung ROE? It's the return on equity, okay, which is net income after tax over total equity. So what did DuPont do? DuPont is a chemical company, no, sa US, no? Ang ginawa ni DuPont, binake down niya tong return on equity. So, tingnan nyo to guys, yung paano niya binake down. So, nagsimula tayo, di ba, ang formula ng return on equity, di ba, pag return net income after tax yan. Kung ano man yung ino-on niya on equity, yun ang denominator natin, total equity. So, return on equity is net income after tax over total equity. And then, i-multiply natin siya ng sales over sales and total assets over total assets. And we know the value of that will not change kasi you're just multiplying it with 1. So after multiplying your ROE with the sales over sales and total assets and over total assets, we reposition, we rearrange the multiplication, and then yung sales dito, linagay natin dito. Tingnan nyo guys, binago-bago natin yung denominator. No? Pareho pa rin yung numerator, yung denominator, binago-bago natin. So what happened here was NI80 over sales, and then sales over total assets, and then total assets over total equity. Okay? So this is what we call the three-way DuPont. Kasi may five-way pa eh, which we're not going to look at. Ibig sabihin ng five-way, ginawa niyang 5 ratios to. Ano ba yung objective ng DuPont, guys? The objective was to look at ROE from a component basis. Ibig sabihin component, hindi lang natin titinan yung net income after tax over total assets. Titinan natin itong tatlong ratios na to. Okay. In other words, parang dinisect natin. Dinisect natin si ROE into 3 components. Yan. So ito yung 3 components na yon ng ROE. So net income after tax over sales is your profit margin. Diba? Nasa taas yan. Sales over total assets is your total asset turnover. Na-discuss, di ko yata na-discuss yung ano. So, hindi ko pala nadagdag dito, no? Meron pala, FATO and saka TATO. No? So, na-discuss natin yan. Okay, so sales over total assets, so that's your TATO, no? And then, ito hindi, no? Total assets over total equity is called your equity multiplier or financial leverage multiplier. Okay? Ito guys, anyway, sige, tingnan natin isa-isa to ha. So profit margin, alam natin yan, di ba? It tells us how much income is generated for every peso of sales. The higher the profit margin is, the better. Okay? So ang sabi dito, you take a look at ROE not only as one component, no? Hindi lang net income after tax over total assets. Pwede natin i-break down si ROE into 3 main components. Si profit margin, si TATO, at saka si financial leverage multiplier. And we know guys that since this is multiplicative, okay, mas gusto natin guys na mas mataas itong mga to, no, di ba? Para mataas yung ROE. Again, anong context natin guys? Ang bida nun na measure ROE. So panay ROE ang hinahanap ng mga shareholders. Ano ROE? Ano ROE? Ano ROE? No? Kasi gusto nila malaman kung ano yung nangyayari, ano yung nagiging income nila based on every peso of investment that they have. Remember, ROE is simply your net income after tax divided by total equity. So pag dinivide natin yon, kunyari 1.2 lumabas, ibig sabihin for every equity, okay, for every equity, peso of equity nakaka-generate ng net income na 1.2. Okay, so again, guys, we decompose it into this one, profit margin, TATO, and then financial leverage multiplier or your equity multiplier. Okay, so, okay, tinalan natin to guys, yung FLM na to. No? Ito, breakdown lang natin si FLM. Ito. So, this is just the breakdown for FLM. Nag-focus lang tayo dito, no? So, it's equal to total assets over total equity. Okay, so the FLM guys tells us how much does the company use debt, no, to finance its assets. Yun ang mine-measure nitong financial leverage multiplier. Okay, the higher the FLM, I'll explain in a while. No? The higher the FLM means the higher the debt being used by the company in sourcing its assets. No? So parang debt ratio siya in a sense. No? Kaso ang ginagamit na ratio, total assets over total equity. So let's rename this, guys. Okay. So total assets over, take note, total equity is total assets minus total liabilities. Okay. Pause muna ako. Tama ba yung guys? Clear tayo so far there? Pakichat nga. Kung clear sa atin tong denominator na to, total equity is simply total assets minus total liability. Kindly chat, guys. I just want to know if we're still on the same page. Nagkakaintindihan tayo. Okay? All right. Good. Thank you. Tapos, guys, gawin natin, minanipulate na naman natin to, no? Okay. So, ang gagawin ko dito, si total assets, i-divide ko ng total assets. Tapos, itong denominator na to, i-divide ko rin ng total assets. Okay, para ano? Para ma-reduce natin into this. So, total assets over total assets is 1. Okay. Then, what's this? Okay, sandali ah. Let me use the... So, how did this become like this? Yung financial leverage multiplier natin. Okay. So it's total assets over total assets, and then divided by total assets minus total liability over total assets. So yun ang nangyari, guys, sa ano natin, no? Sa financial leverage natin. Okay, so very easily, yung numerator natin, yung numerator natin, 1 yan, no? Over, so that's, ito guys, itong denominator natin, i-distribute natin yung denominator natin. This will become total assets over total assets minus total equity over, wait, this is total, sorry, total liabilities to. Total liabilities over total assets. Yan, okay? By the definition of division, yung total assets na to, dinistribute natin sa bawat element ng numerator natin. So this becomes what, guys? This becomes 1 over 1 minus debt ratio. Okay, so ito yung FLM natin. Financial leverage multiplier, aka equity multiplier. So let's take a look at this, guys. Okay, what happens to your financial leverage multiplier if your DR increases? Pag tinataasan natin yung, ano yung DR, guys? Debt ratio siya, di ba? Pag tinataasan natin yung utang, pag gumagamit tayo ngayon ng debt to finance our assets, okay, what happens to your financial leverage multiplier? Guys, just a simple ratio. Ano nangyayari, guys, sa FLM natin kung tumataas yung debt ratio natin? Anyone, guys? You can unmute yourself. What happens to our financial leverage multiplier or equity multiplier, aka equity multiplier? Kasi tinitingnan natin implication nito eh. No? So what happens? Lumiliit. Okay? Okay, tingnan natin guys ha. Okay, negative. Okay. Thank you, Hans. Let's see, no? Let's analyze. No? So if this increases, what happens guys to, siguro i-mathematical na lang natin, no? Okay, let's do it mathematically. Okay, let's assume that tanggalin natin to. So I have here several increments of your debt ratio. 0% na debt ratio, ibig sabihin 100% equity yan. 10% na debt ratio, 20% hanggang 100%. Okay, what happens to your FLM guys if you have a debt ratio equal to 0%? So what's the formula? Equal to 1 over 1 minus your debt ratio, di ba? Okay, 1 minus your debt ratio. So again guys, ito, linagyan natin dito yung mga debt ratio natin. So anong mangyayari sa FLM natin? So your financial leverage multiplier, kung wala tayong debt, is just 1. No? Pero kung may debt tayo na 10%, so I can copy the formula down. Okay. So what happened to our financial leverage multiplier? Guys, answer? Pakichat nga. Ano nangyari guys sa FLM natin? What happened? Answer guys? Yan o, tingnan natin no. From 0% na debt ratio, naging 10% na debt ratio. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. No? Charles, thank you. Hans, thank you. You're correct. So habang lumalaki guys yung debt ratio natin, habang lumalaki yung financing by debt, lumalaki yung financial leverage multiplier natin. So if I copy this down, okay, so yun, ang taas na, no? Okay, it increases. So a high financial leverage multiplier, guys, relatively means that the company is using debt in order to finance its assets. Yun ang ibig sabihin yan. In fact nga, kung 100% yung ano, yung 100% yung debt natin, guys, so this becomes 1. So 1 minus 1, that's 0, guys. So infinite na to, no? Your financial leverage multiplier becomes infinite. Kasi when you divide by 0, guys, that means you reach that nagli-limiting value tayo ng infinity. Okay, clear yung concept niya, guys. So the higher the equity multiplier, okay, it means that the higher the debt is, the debt ratio is. Pero kung titingnan natin dito, guys, in the context of ROE, kailan tataas yung ROE in relation to FLM, guys? When will ROE increase in relation to FLM? Come on, answer guys, answer. Simpleng question lang yan, no? Paano tataas yung ROE in relation to FLM? Your financial leverage multiplier or equity multiplier? Answer? Take a look at the formula. Okay, pause ko muna yung recording guys ha. Sabi natin, no? If we want to increase ROE, taasan yung FLM. Kasi take a look at the formula, multiplication yan eh. So if in order to increase FLM, tataasan dapat yung debt ratio. Okay? So increasing FLM actually means increasing your debt ratio. Okay, now increasing FLM guys will result into ROE. Right or wrong? And why? So I'm waiting guys for your answer. Any guess? Hula lang, no? Okay, no guess. Okay, so I leave that to you guys to analyze. Kasi ang clue dyan guys, hindi lang naman iisa yung component ng ROE, di ba? Ayan, kitang-kita nyo guys, may ibang component yan. So try to see how the other components will be affected. Okay, so last guys, last na titingnan natin will be, we have around 15 more minutes to discuss this, yung Altman Z. So saan ginagamit yung Altman Z? So financial analysts or finance people and accountancy people have developed research has shown that yung isang gamit ng ratios is to pwede nating ma-predict, no? It can be used to predict bankruptcy. Okay? So on your own guys, i-google nyo tong Altman Z na to. Okay, this is a ratio. So may Altman Z and it's based on a Z-score. Yan. So Z-score siya, and with this is the formula. Okay, siguro tingnan na lang din natin while we're at it. I want to show you. Okay, so dito. By the way guys, sorry, before, may nakalimutan ako dito sa aspect na to, no? Okay, dun sa FLM guys, I failed to show you. Sa FLM, tingnan natin guys yung FLM, yung financial leverage multiplier ni Apple, tapos ni Verizon, tapos i-compare natin, no? So, you can use Yahoo Finance. Okay, sige. I think I showed this to you before, yung Yahoo.Finance. No? So, let's get the ticker for Apple. This is Apple. AAPL. Gagamitin natin to guys next week, no? Next week when we discuss risk and return. Apple, hanapin natin si Apple there. AAPL. And then you can take a look at ang kagandahan guys sa Yahoo, pwede natin makita yung financials. No? Financials. Okay, financials. Okay, ito yung financials na. Tapos binibigay sa atin yung income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. So let me take a look at balance sheet. Kunin natin guys yung ayan, kunin natin FLM ni Apple. So I'm copying here total assets. This can be copied. Okay, so ano siya, no? Fiscal year. So this is October 1 or September 29. So every September yung ni Apple, yung fiscal year niya. So Control C, I'm going to copy it here in Excel. So, dito na lang. So new sheet. Control V. Okay, so ang default niya naka baba. So let me just copy this. Control C. Hindi, pwede na yan, no? Pwede na. So let's just use it row-wise. So Apple to guys, Apple. This is Apple stocks. Total assets niya, this is, anong year to? 2019, 18, 17. So hanggang 2017. Then let's copy yung total equity niya. Ito na lang. Control C. Oops. Control V. This is the total equity. So 2020 ba to? 2019. Okay, so let's compute for the FLM. Diba ang FLM guys, it's equal to total assets over total equity. Okay. So this is a measure of how much debt is being used by Apple, no? Relative to its total assets. So if you take a look guys, noong 2020, tumaas yung FLM niya, no? Ibig sabihin lumaki yung gamit niya ng debt, 4.9 as against 3.7 noong 2019. So over time you can see that the FLM uh, of Apple seems to be increasing over time. Insert lang ako. Ay, baliktad. Muna kasi yung ano. Okay, hindi. Ito na lang. Okay, sorry. Nabaliktad ko guys. It should have been sorted from 2017 to 2019. Okay, so this is just telling us guys that yung FLM, financial leverage multiplier ni Apple, has been increasing over time. And then perhaps you take a look at another company that's related. Tapos pwedeng i-map out yan, total assets, total equity, and then take a look at the financial leverage multiplier. Okay? So it's important to look at our FLM kasi guys, kailangan yan that's needed in order to look at your ROE, no? Your return on equity. Yan. Pero guys, may may downside. Yun ang tinatanong ko sa inyo kanina. Kasi increasing FLM means increasing your debt ratio. Okay? Kung titingnan lang natin to guys, tataas nga yung ROE kasi mag-i-increase to. But again, I'll post that question guys. Not necessarily kasi higher debt ratio might indicate something which might affect the other measures. So yun ang gusto kong tingnan nyo, no? That was what I was asking a while ago. Okay, so let's go back here. Yung last topic natin is the Altman Z. Okay. So I hold you responsible guys to reading some things about Altman Z. Marami naman discussion yan sa sa internet. Sige, ilagay na lang natin. So let's take a look at Altman Z. Okay. Okay. Let's choose Investopedia. It's a good source. Okay, so you can read on this, guys. Okay, so it's based on 5 financial ratios. And then here we can compute for the probability of becoming insolvent. Kung insolvent means pwede ma-dissolve yung company, no? So this is the formula for the Altman Z. And ito application guys ng ratios kasi tingnan nyo guys, ang ginagamit dito ratios. Okay, so you come up with a Z-score and then may range dito, no? Ano yung range na sinasabi dito? Okay, so just read on the history. Si Professor Altman ang nag-develop niyan. Okay, and asan yung range? Okay, so if you take a look at this, so dito guys, ang binibigay niya isang isang klaseng Altman Z lang to. Marami pang iba. Ito guys, this is Altman Z for a publicly listed company kasi may market value. May Altman Z din that's given if if the company is not publicly listed. So control C, nalagay ko ba dito sa Excel yan? Okay, hindi ko nalagay. So kinopy paste ko. Insert tayo ng text. Okay, so kinopy ko dito yung yung implication ng ng Altman Z. Okay, a score below 1.8 means it's likely the company is headed for bankruptcy. While companies with scores above 3 are not likely to go bankrupt. Investors can use Altman Z to determine whether they should buy or sell a stock if they're concerned about the company's underlying financial strength. Investors may consider purchasing a stock if its Altman Z is closer to 3 and selling or shorting a stock if it's closer to 1.8. So, notice nyo guys, pag 1.8 and below, prone to bankruptcy yan. Altman Z of 3 and above, very strong yan. Walang probability of bankruptcy is very low. And then merong gray area, no? Yung 1.8 and 3, that's what Altman calls as a gray area. Okay, so ibig sabihin ng gray area, we're not certain, no, about the standing of the company. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so una, working capital over total assets. Okay, so linagay ko na guys yung linagay ko na yung ratio dito, okay, for your review. Ano yung working capital guys? It's your total current assets minus total current liabilities divided by your total assets. So I already placed here the computation. So review na lang guys ha. Tapos ito, retained earnings over total assets. And then this one is EBIT divided by total assets. This is the market value of the equity divided by the total liabilities. So ito yung number of shares times the number of shares times the yung price ng stock. Okay, so that's the market value. And divided by total liabilities, alam natin yan. And then sales over total assets. Okay. Alright, so this is your Tato. No? Okay, and then the factor, ito yung susundin natin. 1.2, 1.4, 3.3, 0.6, at saka 1. So ito yun. So we're going to multiply this by this by this. Okay, I don't know if you know the function sum product. Okay, kasi ang long cut niyan is equal to this times this plus this times this plus this. Isa-isahin natin yan, ano? Kaso pag mahaba, matagal. 5 nga lang yan, matagal na eh. Kung 20 yan, guys. Times this. So, minultiply natin yung, kasi ito yung formula, 1.2 times A, ito yung ratio A. So, minultiply natin yan, isa-isa. So, times, plus, times, plus, times, plus, times, plus. Control, enter. Okay. So, 2.4999 or 2.5. So, correct, no? So, the shortcut is sum product nitong ratio at saka nitong factor. So, that's the faster way to do that. Okay, 2.5, guys. So, what's our conclusion about this? What's our conclusion about this? Wala yung company dun sa mataas na probability na magiging bankrupt siya, pero wala rin siya dun sa taas na financially stable yung company. So nasa gray area yung company na to, no? Ibig sabihin, we are inconclusive kung magiging bankrupt yung, yeah, correct. Thank you, Hans. Magiging bankrupt yung company or not. Kasi 2.49 siya or 2.5. So it's between 1.8 and 3. Okay? So this is one use of ratios. We use ratios in order to, we can predict, guys. We can predict if a company will become bankrupt or not. Okay, many studies have been done with this, guys. Maraming nagko-contradict dito, maraming kumokontra, sabi nila hindi naman daw accurate or hindi siya reliable, but there are those who would say that may mga studies na nagsasabi na reliable siya, may mga studies na nagsasabi na hindi siya reliable, no? So, ganun yung sa research, ganun yung sinasabi, no? So, medyo divided yung house about this. But since anyway, you can compute, di ba? Wala namang libre naman yung pag-compute, eh, di ba? It just takes a little more effort, and then maybe help the company in analyzing more the performance of the firm. Kasi wala namang magiging masama, guys, kung kinompute natin yung Altman Z. And there are other models pa, no? Isang model lang itong tinignan natin. You can research more on this. You can look at other Altman Z models. And there are also other models that predict bankruptcy. So isa lang to. This is just one of the ways whereby companies can predict whether a company will become bankrupt or not. So ang main ano niyan guys, ginagamit yung ratios. Combination of ratios that could help assess the performance of a company. Okay? Clear lang guys, clear? Any questions? Any questions about yung ratios natin? Okay, anything you'd like to comment on?
Sir,
Yes.
will you send us this file po?
Send you this file. Actually, guys, ang gusto ko sana kasi ano, yung gagawin nyo, no? Anyway, may video. Nakaano naman yung video, guys. And I think, di ba, sinend ko na yung ano? Sinend ko ba yung may computation? Guys? Sinend ko ba yung may computation ng ratios?
Wala, sir.
Wala. O, kasi ang purpose ko niyan talaga is for you to, kasi pwede isa lang naman gawin nyo tapos i-drag nyo. So the purpose, kasi it will defeat the purpose guys if I just give it to you tapos hindi nyo gawin ano. Ang objective talaga nito is for you to really work on the ratios tapos gawin nyo. I extended it into such a way that binigay ko na yung formula dito, no? I wrote the formulas so that you'll be able to follow it on your own. Okay? So I hope that hindi alam niyo naman ako na pag pag pwede binibigay ko talaga kasi bakit ko ipagkakait sa inyo yan. Pero ang objective kasi natin dito guys is for you to work on that, no? Gawin niyo, tingnan niyo, spend some time also working on this para maging familiar kayo dun sa ano. Kasi studies have shown that mas namamaster nyo yung concept na to kung kayo mismo yung gagawa. Okay? For example, ito sales over average AR. So, lahat ng formula siya nakabigay, tapos magagawa nyo talaga yan. Okay? Alright, so any other questions, guys? No more questions?
Pwede po ulit makita yung formula for the book value per share.
Book value per share, sige. Book value per share. So this is total equity. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Total equity natin for this is 2020 kasi no, itong column na to, divided by the average number of shares. So in average lang natin yung D40, that's your shares ng 2019, end of 2019. Although wala siyang laman, pero still okay lang yun kahit walang laman. May laman naman yung E40. Okay, any other questions, guys?
Sir, pwede pakitain yung price cash flow ratio,
Okay,
the
sige.
formula.
Okay, thank you. Those questions I really appreciate, no? Yan. Ato medyo mahaba yung formula, no?
And the EBITDA coverage, sir. Thank you.
EBITDA coverage, sige.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sige, sandali Our EBITDA coverage, okay na yon? Okay na tong ano? Ito ba yung tanong mo, yung price?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's the formula. Okay, you can also take a picture using your cell phone na lang para makuha nyo kagad, no? Tapos yung EBITDA coverage, it's this one. Kasi that's your your EBIT plus your depreciation, amortization, and plus your lease divided by the sum of your interest and yung principal, tapos kung may lease din. And guys, kunyari, if you have questions about the formula, please feel free to PM me or to chat, no? I'll gladly discuss with you how it was computed. Pero I want you to do it, no? Para, kasi ang hirap kung ibigay ko lang tapos mas maganda kung kayo mismo nag-compute. Okay, any other questions, guys? Okay, paki-chat lang kung clear so far so that I know kung may questions pa kayo o hindi. Clear ba so far, guys? Paki-chat lang, please. Okay, thank you. Good. Okay. All right. So it's already time, no? So next meeting, guys, time value of money na tayo, no? And then maybe one session on time value of money. Nga pala, wala tayong synchronous class next meeting. Pero I'll be online, guys. I'll be discussing time value of money. For those of you who want to attend, I'll open the Zoom. Okay, but no attendance will be checked. Okay, and then I'll post the recording. Okay, sige. So, stop ko na muna yung recording natin. Okay, thank you so much. Yung magpapacheck na attendance.